It begins once again. Hello, patrons of Gaming Wildlife. This is your director, and welcome back to the long-awaited return of the State of Gaming. I'm here with my friend Adam from London, from England, from not America.
Bath. I'm from Bath.
From Bath? Oh, okay.
Let's clear that up. I'm not from London.
I actually know that city. I have heard of a place called Bath.
Ooh. I'll give the viewers some quick backstory on Bath. Anyone who watches The Walking Dead in this audience, which might be a lot of you, well, Andrew Lincoln, the one who plays Rick Grimes, obviously, went to the same school as me. Not at the same time, different times, but still, so that's interesting.
Well, I assume he went at different times. I think that the actor who plays Rick Grimes is in his 30s or 40s, and I don't think you're that old.
No, obviously.
But anyway, for those of you who don't know what the State of Gaming is, the State of Gaming is a sometimes podcast that we're now going to try and do on a regular basis, where we discuss various different things that are happening within the world of video games right now. One thing that we were talking about is this article on Game Informer that says video game voice actors are taking a vote on whether to strike. Apparently, the SAG-AFTRA, which I'm not 100% sure that is, I'm guessing that's Screen Actors Guild for video game voiceover artists or something, are asking for a big push for video game voice actors from publishers. They say that they're wanting to get more residual payments to kick in after a game sells 2 million units.
Yep.
And then for every 2 million units after that, they will get more money for the voice actors.
Exactly. And yeah, I read through this article just now, and I gotta say, like, it makes a lot of sense to me from both perspectives, but I have an opinion on both sides. Which, I mean, voice actors work incredibly hard. I mean, look at Elias Tefexis, who voiced Adam Jensen in Deus Ex Human Revolution, as well as Cesare Pazzi. Sorry, that's wrong. One of the people in Assassin's Creed 2. Anyways, he's done lots of voice acting, and in particular, his work on Deus Ex Human Revolution, just the voice acting took him 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, 3 years of that game being developed from like 2007 to 2011, and 3 years just for the voice. So I think him getting payment after each 2 million of the game sales is completely fair, honestly. Because otherwise, if the game only sells like 4 million units, and he's only paid like, you know, if he was only paid for like the work of, say, a once payment, which isn't like that much, then I don't believe that that's good enough for the work he put in, because 3 years is a hell of a long time.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know a lot about video game sales. I just remember from a few years ago when we were doing the Electronic Arts episode, we had done some research on SimCity 2013, and that game, I remember within the first week it had sold 1.1 million units, but then I remember the numbers dropped off significantly after that, mostly because a lot of people said the game was terrible, myself included. That game pissed me off. But I don't think SimCity 2013 had a whole lot of voice acting in it, but it just makes me wonder, does that mean that if it doesn't reach 2 million units, they don't get residual payments? Because that's still a huge amount of people. I mean, like, getting a million people to watch a video on YouTube is a big deal for, like, me. I'm just thinking that if the game sells less than 2 million, are publishers not, required to pay residuals to their voice actors?
I mean, that's what it really sounds like, because, I mean, I get it, you know, and the entertainment industry is a very, very difficult thing to break into.
Yes.
And it's a very unsafe and very, I suppose, unsustainable market in a lot of places, especially with voice acting, because there are lots of factors that goes into it. So with voice acting in games especially, again, with people like Elias Tefexis and Troy Baker, who's pretty much on top of the world right now, if he is only being paid, say, the new, say, Metal Gear Solid, for example. Metal Gear Solid, he was Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, I remember that.
Revolver Ocelot, and he comes in, you know, does his thing, does all these voice clips and all the voiceovers and so on, and he's only paid once for the game, even though it could sell 5 or 6 times over the 2 million threshold as they're proposing. Then he would, you know, not be paid what particular he earns, you know?
Yeah, this was a big deal. I remember back in 2007 for the Writers Guild of America. It caused a lot of issues with like TV shows and movies at the time that they were wanting to get paid for like DVD sales and for I think it's not direct to video, like download sales as well.
Yeah.
People, I can't remember what it's called offhand, but when you can like order movies to your television through your cable company and stuff,
like Sky Store.
Yeah, they had wanted to get paid for that, and they had originally said like something very small for like 8 cents for every DVD sold, and they ended up having to, because for so long they had gone on strike. There basically hadn't been any new shows written for about 2 months, and it was really hurting the television industry. They had done the strike for 2 months, and then was like, okay, we'll do 4 cents for every DVD sale, and they got that and had to sort of buckle under this. I'm hoping that if the Voice Actors Guild really does go on strike, I hope they really properly go on strike and don't actually back down until they get what they want. Because it's one of those things where a lot of people don't realize this. Like, voice acting, especially in modern video games, is almost 100% necessary for the immersion of the game. If all the major voice actors just go on strike and say, we're not doing anything else, it's going to hurt the industry and really cause the developers, publishers to go, oh, we need to pay these people more. I hope they don't back down if they really truly do this. I hope they are willing to let the industry take a hit so that they can get what they need. Not just what they want, what they need. Because I know that voice acting is just really difficult to get into. I've done a little bit myself, but nothing terribly huge.
Yeah. I mean, as we discussed before, it's a very difficult thing to break into, as you've just described. And so, for people to actually get there and have the talents and have the demand, they should be paid adequately to live comfortably for their service. And if it's being held back from them, then that's when problems are really going to arise. So I really do think, just like the Writers Guild of 2007, you know, they got what they wanted. They got royalties on DVD sales. They got royalties on direct-to-video, on Netflix, and so on. And I think that this should happen with games too at the 2 million threshold.
I agree. So I've got another thing here. Apparently, and this is going to be fun to hear from Ubisoft, who is now basically kind of turning into Electronic Arts 2. Uplay was updated a couple of weeks ago. It will no longer open completely when using a shortcut. Say, for example, I don't know, Steam.
Oh, that's fucking great.
I had already had some problems trying to load Uplay games like Far Cry and stuff through Steam, but now it won't open. Now it won't even open completely. You have to actually go entirely through Uplay. And so this brings a question up that I've got for you. Why do we have cross-platform games if they won't work properly on the platform? Because the weird thing is, if I purchase, say, Far Cry 4 on Steam, I have to register and get a Uplay account to be able to play it. So I paid for it on Steam. The thing is, I don't have to pay for it on Uplay, but I have to use Uplay to be able to play Far Cry 4. Why even allow it on Steam in the first place?
No, that actually does propose to me a very interesting point, and I had a conversation the other day regarding actually Uplay and Ubisoft in the context of Assassin's Creed Unity. Because I bought Unity day one. The game sucks, whatever, let's just move past it. I bought Unity day one, and I remember I bought it on disc, so I actually had to install Uplay even though I had it on a disc, right? I had no code or anything. And I had to run it through Uplay every single time. It booted up every single time. And our friends of mine had it on Steam. So they had to, if we wanted to play together, right, he had to put it up on Steam. It would then bring him into Uplay. He had to add me as a friend on Uplay, not even if I sent the invite through Steam. And then through Uplay then could we have to connect. So it was pretty much pointless having it on any platform because it would always go through Uplay. As to why it's on Steam, well, it's because Steam has a bigger marketplace.
It does, but it's so, like, if I mean, I understand that if I'm purchasing a game on Steam, they're getting a residual of the cut of the game itself.
They do.
But then, like, there was for a long time they required people to use games for Windows for certain games.
Oh joy!
I remember having to install that to play Fallout 3, as well as having to install Resident Evil 5. But the problem was Games for Windows was so glitchy and so badly optimized, they had to cut it out entirely with those games.
It did, and I remember I bought Batman Arkham Asylum on Steam back in 2011.
Yeah.
And I got halfway through the game and my save file corrupted because Games for Windows Live is complete shit.
Yeah.
And the game was unplayable, really, until they just axed it, and then Steam sort of took the games that were on Games for Windows Live and then made them on their own independent platforms, which got rid of all the DRM and stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
I'm just, it doesn't, like, I don't know what the benefit is for Ubisoft to have to do this. Like, I got problems with Ubisoft as a developer, but let's be honest, they make fun games.
They do. I'm a massive Assassin's Creed fan, even though I kind of hate the company.
Yeah. I've played Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, and despite the fact that they're basically the same game, I think Far Cry 4 is a little bit better. I think it was a little better optimized. And there's just a lot of great things you can do with these games, but why put them on, like, another platform other than just, oh, we can make a whole bunch of extra money on this if you're going to automatically make me put it on Uplay. Like, I can't even access Uplay through Steam. I have to actually load Uplay to be able to play Far Cry 4. It's ridiculous. Why do this at all if you're going to then say, bought it through Steam, now I have to open up Uplay? Why even do that at all? Why just say it's on Uplay and only on Uplay?
Well, I think for me, there's an old, I guess, I'm trying to think of, is it metaphor? I believe, yes. There's an old metaphor saying about having the cake and eating it too, or taking the ball and going home.
Yeah.
And I think Uplay and Ubisoft are incorporating both of these metaphors together. That, you know, they want to have their own party with cake and games, and yet they want to regulate it while inviting everyone else in. So they sort of have their own exclusivity while inviting Steam and like Desura or whatever into hosting their games too.
Yeah.
Having royalties on it and so on. Because they want the bigger market share. They want more exposure, more ways for people to buy and play their games. But they still want to be greedy and hold on to their licenses with an iron grip unnecessarily because they're paranoid or they're jealous of Steam's success. Maybe they just want Uplay to be a thing and they think that holding their games hostage behind Uplay will be the answer.
Yeah. It's, I mean, if you're going to do stuff like that, a lot of these companies don't quite understand. Origin doesn't understand, and Uplay doesn't understand the one thing that makes Steam work. And they can have a badly optimized, what would you call Uplay and Origin? Is just a download service, basically?
No, they're just pretty much just a download service.
Okay.
And the only advantage that Origin has over Steam is their customer support. That's pretty much it.
Well, yeah, Steam customer support isn't great. But I feel like what Origin and Uplay have, they're not quite as well optimized as Steam. I feel like their community isn't. Well, their community is basically non-existent, in my opinion, but if they really want to compete with Steam, they need to do the one thing that Steam does that no one else does: sales. Steam will get a bunch of games, like GOG does this as well, that they will do sales on a bunch of old games that they're not really selling right now, and those games make a shit ton of money, and all of a sudden, hey, we just made a whole bunch of money off of old games because we lowered the price briefly for a short period of time. I don't see Origin and Uplay doing that. If they really want to compete, they have to be willing to do that, to take a little bit of a hit, because then they'll make a much bigger profit in the end. But they're not doing that.
They're really not, and I've actually just booted up Origin's page, and they used to do, or they still might do, this on the house service, which they basically entice people over by giving them free games, right?
Yeah, I've actually gotten a couple. I think I got Sims 2, the complete edition for that.
Yeah,
Sims 2 is badly optimized as a game. Like, loading screens are forever, even on a brand new computer.
Yep. Like, I got, what was it? Dead Space, the original. I also got Dragon Age Origins, and I got, like, Crusader No Remorse. And I'm looking right now, and there's Command and Conquer Red Alert 2, which is a pretty good game. So.
Yeah.
That's another incentive. And that, I mean, that's something Origin does, you know. I mean, Origin gives out free games now and again. I've bought one game on Origin, and it was Battlefield 3 for 73 pence.
How did you get Battlefield Origin for 73 pence?
I just did.
I mean, okay, because I'm American, and I have some American viewers. How much is a pence, real quick?
Alright, well, let's see here. $1 is about 66 pence. So 73 pence is just over $1.
How did you get Battlefield 3 for just over $1?
I don't know. I'm looking at it right now, and it's £15. That's fucking crazy.
I don't even know. Anyway, so do you know who Julian Merceron is?
I can't say I do.
Okay, he's part of Konami.
Oh god.
And you're just like, oh god, there's a whole nother can of worms there.
I don't want to know Konami.
But apparently a few weeks ago, he quit Konami. Reportedly, they told him that they have no future plans for his engine on console
Fox Engine developer.
Say what?
The Fox Engine developer.
Yeah, the Fox Engine developer.
Yes. Right.
Supposedly, they have no future plans for his engine on console or PC. I feel as though we just need to bring this up again because we did a Konami episode a couple months back. Yes, you did right, and it was really funny, and a lot of people really liked it. What the actual fuck is Konami doing? No, seriously, can we just talk about what is because after the episode was aired, a lot of people were discussing about what Konami's big business plan is. Apparently a lot of things they do is they do slot machines and casino style games in Japan, and that makes them a lot of money, which makes me wonder why even do video games in the first place. And it seems like maybe they're starting to go in that direction because they've kicked out Hideo Kojima, they canceled Silent Hills, the guy who created the Foxhound engine has quit because Konami's just like, we don't really want you in the future. Is this just them going, we don't want to do video games at all anymore, so we're just going to kick everyone out? What's the deal with Konami?
Well, not to plug myself, I don't want to, plug myself, but I did a video 4 months ago called Face It, Konami is Dead, which got about 1,000 views or so.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much going to reiterate what I'm saying here, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, I figured, why not? What I said in that video is Konami are suicidal as a company. They've seen the way that Capcom has, been going down the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They've seen how these older companies are facing hard times, like Sega even. They've seen it, and they're thinking, that's not going to happen to us. We're going to shut ourselves away, We haven't got a good engine. We haven't got talented developers. We're just going to fade away and be remembered for all the great stuff we did.
You can't fire me, I quit.
Exactly. You can't fire me, I quit. What is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance 2? Never heard of it. They're just denying everything that they've built up.
Right.
Just to pretend that they're just like, hey, we're not Konami. We're gone. We're a ghost. We're a pleasant memory. That's all.
It's just, I guess in Japan, because arcades are huge in Japan and not really all that big over here, but that a lot of the Konami stuff is in the style of casino-like arcades, so where basically they're sort of just lottery machines, and that's where they're making most of their money.
The Kalinka machines.
So why even go into games development in the first place? Was it just at the time when they started making the original Metal Gear, when they started making stuff for the NES and the Sega Master System, was it just at the time this is a good business venture, and now they're starting to think, maybe we don't want to do this anymore. Maybe we just want to move on and go back to the only thing that makes us money. Is that basically what is this all they're doing at this point?
Well, I think with Konami, it's not really that they lost their integrity as time went on. I think with their nosedive recently, it's more just about paranoia, more about being afraid of the future, and instead of trying to excel, adapt, and evolve, they've instead cowered in the corner in the fetal position. And they're going to remain in that position until someone puts them out of their misery, which I'm hoping is going to be pretty soon, the way that they're going.
Yeah. It's, I guess at this point it's just I don't know. I can't even begin to explain what the hell's going on with Konami. All I see is practically every other week on the front page of either Games or Our Gaming on Reddit, it's just like, oh, another stupid thing that Konami did. Someone else quit from Konami. Konami is just like, we're ceasing production on all AAA video games, except for like a couple. And it's just like, what are you doing? Are you? It does honestly feel like they're just, putting a gun to their head and saying, you can't fire me, I quit. Exactly. I just don't understand it.
Well, I mean, Konami just wants to make a mess of themselves, and I originally speculated that this was all like a big publicity stunt, right? They all said,
if that's truly a publicity stunt, it's been going on for months.
Yeah, and that's when my whole publicity stunt theory kind of collapsed in on itself, because then I realized, well, yeah, they fired Kojima and got rid of their only big major engine, and are now trying to cut off ties with Metal Gear, and wanting to make Kalinko machines, and this isn't a joke anymore, is it?
No, this isn't a joke. This is literally what Konami's future is. So, this is not exactly new news, but it's something that we haven't really talked about on the channel. Nintendo announced a new president. I'm gonna butcher this name, so I'm just gonna try it. Tatsumi Kimishima.
Yes, the replacement for Satoru Iwata.
Satoru Iwata, who, rest in peace, Mr. Iwata. Yep. You were a great president of the company. During your time, I bought a whole bunch of Nintendo games. But apparently he was the former Nintendo of America president from 2002 to 2006 before Reggie Fils-Aimé took over. What is your opinion of the new Pokemon game being released for iOS?
Oh, I actually have an opinion on this. Well, I not to plug myself again, I keep doing this, but I did a rant video on...
People who watch or listen to the podcast, Adam has a channel on YouTube that you can listen to other rants like this. It's called Cold Steel Games. Go check it out.
Thank you. That'll suffice from now on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made a point about Pokemon Go, and I'll give it again just for reference. But basically, I said that they're in a very unique situation because every kid nowadays has a smartphone.
Yes.
Every teenager carries an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or some sort of OnePlus device or something.
Yep.
So they've all got access to screens, and they're always carrying their phones with them. So they tapped into a market of, what if we made a Pokemon game that used, satellite navigation, GPS, and we got kids to go outside? I love the idea. I really, really do. But I'm fearful of their pricing model. Now, 9gag released this fake screenshot the other day.
I guess Future Ian's going to have to put up the fake screenshot, so go ahead, Future Ian, and put that up.
Yes, 9gag released a fake screenshot the other day where it looked very convincing, and it showed two screenshots. The first was on, oh no, Pikachu has gotten away, use a Pokeball to catch him, and it was like Pokeball, $1, Master Ball, $10, and between. And then it had, oh no, I believe Eevee is evolving, but you can't use a Water Stone. And then it had the different types of stones like Thunderstone, Lightning Stone, and so on for $10 each. And it struck a lot of fear in my mind of, I know Nintendo are usually pretty good with DLC, but they're going to need to market this game, and I don't think they're going to heavily advertise. So I believe that they're going to go down microtransactions in some way. And I really hope it's only cosmetic stuff. I really hope it's just, look, a new hat for your trainer, or look, some cosmetic items for your Pokemon. So they start charging for health potions or having wait timers and stuff, they'll kill the entire prospect.
Well, I mean, there have been other companies who have been successful at porting their games to iOS before. I know Square Enix kind of goes back and forth on that. Granted, you can download many of the different Final Fantasies, the full game and stuff for $10 to $15 on iOS or Android.
Public as well on iPad for £7.
Yeah, and you can actually you can get the full game with no microtransactions, but then they also have some free to play games that have a lot of microtransactions in them. But
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they still have like the games that they've made and the big library that they've had up until now. You can just go on there and download. You can be like, I want to play Final Fantasy VI. You can download Final Fantasy VI for about what the retail price would be, and then you've got the whole game with no microtransactions, no ads or anything else on your phone. I feel like Nintendo could possibly like follow this model as well. Like you said, everyone has a smartphone nowadays that can basically double as a video game console. So being able to, say, go back and purchase, like, Pokemon Yellow, or being able to go back and purchase Pokemon Platinum, and being able to play it on your smartphone might not actually be a bad idea for Nintendo to go along with Pokemon Go. Like, if they were to have a microtransaction video game, it might make them a lot of money, it might not, but then they can also have the games that, you know, people of my generation and your generation have already been playing for many years. Yep. If we were to go back and download those, they would also make a lot of money off of software that that's probably just sitting around doing nothing for them right now.
They would. And that brings up the interesting point of the Nintendo NX, which is rumored to be a mobile-like device with a controller and so on, very similar to like what the Ouya or what the Mad Catz Mojo, etc., NVIDIA Shield console is.
Right.
And it would just run specifically Nintendo software.
I'm just wondering, like, the Nintendo NX is a, you know, mobile Nintendo device. Does that mean it's the next Game Boy? Or is this Nintendo's next console, it's just going to be a mobile console?
It's strange. It seems to be like a home console that can also act as a mobile device. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially what this is Nintendo is... So I guess the guy's first act as being the new Nintendo president is, let's just take both of our consoles, combine them together,
Exactly.
and... Okay.
Though an interesting point I did know about the new president is he predicted the Wii U would fail.
Really? I feel like the Wii U hasn't been doing horribly in sales. I remember when Smash Brothers came out, when Mario Kart came out, when the popular Nintendo series came out, like, they had a huge jump in sales.
They did. I mean, I own a Wii U. I recently bought Mario Maker for it. I think the Wii U's a great system. I love it. It's just that it sold about 10 million or so units in, what's it been now, nearly 3 years? Compared to like the PlayStation 4, which has doubled that in half, or even like a third of the time.
Yeah, I had heard this too. The PlayStation, I think it was I think it was like a false prediction or something, but I heard someone say that the PlayStation 4 has outsold the PS3. I didn't think that was...
No, that's not true.
Yeah, no, but I had like read a couple of articles saying that the PlayStation 4 was up to like 130 million units sold. I'm like, wait, that's not true. That's not true at all. Right. I just was wondering if you had like seen any articles claiming that.
I haven't seen that, but there's no way that the PS4 is up to 120 or whatever the hell it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that would mean that it's getting close to beating the PlayStation 2, which to this day is probably still the highest selling console of all time.
Only backed by the Wii, and there's no goddamn way the PS4 is selling more than the Wii did in 2006 and 7.
It's true, but I mean, I'm simply talking about like overall consoles. Like the two highest selling consoles of all time are the Nintendo DS at like 153 million and the PlayStation 2 at about 155 million. But the thing about the PlayStation 2 is that not all the sales records were kept, and so it's actually what they've recorded is 155 million. It's actually higher than that. And they just don't have the records.
Like 250 million.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where I don't think anyone can ever beat the PlayStation 2 in just number of units sold. And so it's why I found it odd when I saw this article saying, wait, the PlayStation 4 is up to 130? That's not possible.
I'll actually search up the PlayStation 4 sales figures. I mean, I think it's like 20-something thousand, but...
You mean 20 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, it says, this is from April, and it says that the PS4 lifetime sales passed 22.3 million worldwide.
Yeah, that's... I remember reading something around, I want to say June or July, and it was at about 28. I didn't think they had jumped 100 million within like just a few months. That didn't seem right.
No.
No. All right. Well, another thing about PlayStation that I had read recently is that Sony claims that the climate is not healthy for a PlayStation Vita successor. Do you have a PlayStation Vita?
I do have a PlayStation Vita. I'm holding it in my hands right now. I got it in the case and everything. Here's the thing. I got it for Christmas because I wanted one for a long time.
Yeah.
And I literally only got one game for it, and it's currently the only game I still own, which is Killzone Mercenary, which is a fantastic game, but it's the only one I own. I also owned a PlayStation Portable back in 2006.
Yeah.
And I love that system to death, and I played that pretty much every day, for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I do agree with that. There is no room for a PlayStation Vita successor. There just isn't.
I mean, there have been a lot of people who have talked about the Vita as a whole. Game Theory also did an episode about how the Vita is a really good system.
But it's just a horrible failure because it was too advanced for its time. It was like the Dreamcast.
Yeah, it's just really expensive to have to make games and stuff for it, despite the fact that the specs for it are really good. The games for it can be really well made and really high quality. It's just because it's too expensive and there's too small of a market for it. There's just not enough. Yeah.
I think what killed the PlayStation Vita is because they were banking on the PSP's success.
Yeah.
And unlike what Nintendo did with the 3DS, where the 3DS was this interesting system that didn't catch on for about 3 or 4 years, and now it's 120, and now it's got millions and millions and millions of sales, and there's loads of different versions and millions of games, hundreds of games, thousands of games, and so on. Whereas with the Vita, there are maybe 50 games in total that are worth playing.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Nintendo fan for most of my life. I've got a 3DS, and I will say that the only reason I got a 3DS, it was about a year after we started doing Gaming Wildlife is when I purchased mine. The only reason I got it was because a friend of mine had already bought one, and we wanted to be able to play some of the games together.
Yeah.
I feel like, if Vita had more of a social aspect in the way that the 3DS does, it might be better. Like, one of the only reasons I've ever thought about wanting to purchase a Vita was, once again, a lot of the old Final Fantasy games. Because my old roommate, Jim, has a ton of PSP games, but a lot of them are, like, the Final Fantasy Tactics, some old Final Fantasy games, some old Mega Man games, like being able to play stuff like that on a system, like on a mobile system, I think would be a lot of fun. But it's really one of the only reasons I would purchase one. And it's part of the old, and it's part of sort of a dying idea behind video game consoles, is that there are console exclusive games. If you're a developer, the one thing that would help you get a lot of money is to be able to put your games on as many different consoles as possible.
That's true.
This actually brings me to my next point. Fallout 4 apparently is not going to have any platform-exclusive DLC.
That's good. I like that.
There is, because I remember when Fallout 3, or no, not 3, New Vegas. It was Fallout New Vegas came out. There was 5 separate... There's 5 separate exclusive packs for if you bought it from like Best Buy, or if you bought it from
retailer specific DLC.
Yeah, and after a while, it was. I think this is just because Bethesda's always done this with a lot of their games. They combined all the different retail exclusive DLCs into one DLC. I think it was called the Caravan Pack, where you got.
Yes. And then there was like there was another one which was like the Courier's Hand or something like that.
No, it was called Gunrunner's Arsenal, I think. Because I remember, because the Courier Pack was all 5 of the weapon-exclusive DLCs just shoved into one thing, so it's just like, you want all these extra custom weapons, just throw them in there. And then there was the Gunrunner's Arsenal, which added a bunch of different fun mods for the game to be able to mod guns and stuff. It just makes me really like Bethesda a little bit more, despite the fact that we've made fun of them. I've always been a fan of their games. I think they make really cool stuff, and
I agree.
I think Fallout 4 is going to be awesome.
I do. I mean, I've got no real reservations about Fallout 4 at all, aside from people bitching about the art style, which I will never be less annoyed about.
Yeah, To be honest, Fallout 4 does not look that much different from New Vegas or Fallout 3, but I didn't think Fallout 3 or New Vegas looked bad. I thought they were really, fascinating. I thought they were a really fascinating engine. I think they look really good, even by today's standards. I mean, Fallout 3 came out in 2007? 2008. And it still looks good, even on high-resolution graphics. Like, people can mod it to look Skyrim level graphics it can look really good, and I don't know, I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm gonna try and do a let's play of it when it comes out.
Yeah, I hope the same, and I actually need to go back and finish New Vegas because I corrupted it by trying to put 4K textures on there.
Yeah, that's another problem with modding, is that overly modding something can cause it to kind of crash.
That's true.
So, I have a topic. The big topic that I had for today was regarding another publisher called Frictional Games.
They sound familiar.
Yes, Frictional recently released a new game called SOMA. And for those of you watching the YouTube video...
They're the Amnesia people,
yep.
right?
They made the first two Penumbra games, and then I think they also made the third one, but that was made after the fact. They made Amnesia: The Dark Descent. They published Amnesia: Machine for Pigs, but they didn't develop it. That was developed by the Chinese Room, who made Dear Esther and something else. I'm not 100% sure.
Dear Esther sucks, but who's counting?
And they've released a new game now called SOMA. And SOMA is a brand new IP. It has nothing to do with Machine for Pigs, Dark Descent, or Penumbra. And it takes place in the future. It is a future game. My Skype is beeping at me constantly. And I don't know how to stop that, but anyway. It is set in both the present and the future. It starts in the present, but then you are essentially slingshotted to the future, where you are told that... I mean, does anyone care about spoilers here? Can I talk about the plot of the game and stuff?
I mean, you could put an annotation that skips the spoilers for anyone who doesn't like spoilers, and then just talk about them anyway.
Future Ian, go ahead and put up a big spoiler annotation here, and for anyone listening, I will be discussing the plot points of... I will be discussing probably the biggest plot point of the game, but it doesn't spoil the ending, it just tells you what the plot is of the game. It takes place in the future because you were scanned into a computer and your brain waves have been put into a robot. And there is a group of essentially artificial intelligences based off of real people who are wanting to get onto this computerized ark, sort of like a Noah's Ark, go out into space and just live their lives as AI on this, essentially a satellite going through space.
Sounds good. I mean, I've just looked at the reviews for the game, and it's pretty stellar from what I've seen.
What I'm going to talk about today is sort of how Frictional have evolved over the years, and why, though I would say that Soma is a really good game, I don't think it holds up versus Amnesia: The Dark Descent, or Penumbra for that matter. Over the years, Frictional Games have become... they've always wanted to do sort of really creepy, scare the crap out of you games, and Penumbra was very much that. There are always those monsters that come out, and it was really hard to fight them, so more often than not, you wanted to be able to just run away. With Amnesia: The Dark Descent, you couldn't fight them. You had to run away. Machine for Pigs, because it was developed by the Chinese Room, took a much larger approach at the story. The story itself basically took over the entire game, but the problem was that there was no inventory screen, there was no micromanaging of a bunch of different items. It was simply move forward and go to the next point, and the story will tell itself. And there was only a couple of moments where it was like, oh, I'm being chased by monsters and I have to run away. Soma is not quite like that, but still similar to that, unfortunately.
I mean, I just looked at the gameplay for the game, and it's pretty much just the same sort of walk around, collect audio tapes, no combat, puzzles kind of thing. So
the good thing is that it actually has puzzles, and there is, like you said, no combat, but there are sections where, and this I actually found intriguing. There are certain sections of the game where you are actually walking around, and there's a monster in the area, but you can, like, not literally walk past the monster, but avoid the monster, instead of, and if it sees you, it doesn't directly attack you. There are ways that you can, like, get it to attack you and get it to not attack you. There's actually some kind of ingenious puzzle solving in that aspect. I just feel like Dark Descent and Penumbra was able to mix the idea of old school adventure games where you're mixing together items and trying to get your inventory working while also, solving puzzles that way while also avoiding monsters. This, you don't really have an inventory. You kind of do, but it's only one item. It's a, like, computerized handheld thing that helps you get through areas, and the puzzle solving is mostly just going around and touching the environment, trying to figure out, if I do this, then this will allow me to move forward. If I do this, this will allow me to move forward. Kind of puzzle solving. And that's not bad, but it still doesn't quite go to the level that Penumbra and Amnesia had, where you have to, like... I kind of like the inventory micromanagement thing. I feel like Soma's a little bit of a weaker game because it doesn't have that, but it's still stronger than A Machine for Pigs was, because there's a lot more sections where you're having to avoid a monster, you're having to avoid a monster, you're having to solve a puzzle that actually requires you to explore a little bit and go, what am I supposed to do here? Instead of just, press a button, continue plot forward. The problem is, I think that the Chinese room, despite the fact that they didn't develop this game, this was an entirely frictional thing, it still kind of feels a little bit like a Chinese room game.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry. The comparison I'm going to make here might seem a little bit of a stretch, of a reach, but from what I've heard, of what I've just been reading up on, this game, Soma, it's a little bit, to me, what the Arkham series was to Rocksteady, if you think about it, in my opinion. Because you have, like, these two games, in this case, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, which were Penumbra and the Amnesia game.
Dark Descent, yes.
Yeah, and then you had Machine for Pigs, which in this case, in the Batman comparison, which would be Arkham Origins.
Yeah.
And now you have the original developer coming back with a new spin on things, which is their Arkham Knight. And Arkham Knight, for me, happens to be the weakest in the Batman series.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Because it feels so familiar, and it falls back on so many of the conventions of the other games, that it's almost comfortable in being so similar with only a slight change. And I feel that that's sort of the same with Soma, from how you've described it.
Yeah, Soma is, once again, the story is completely unrelated to the other Frictional Games, sort of like how the two Amnesia games kind of have a similar, well, they're kind of related, but not really. Soma has nothing to do with Penumbra, nothing to do with Amnesia. It is its own story, and the idea is the story sort of dives into the idea of what is consciousness, what is being able, like, people in the game are able to transfer their consciousness to an AI, but then they start, freaking out about, well, now there's this robot that has there's this computer program that has all my thoughts and memories. What if I were to die? Would that mean my consciousness would go to that robot? And this starts to cause a lot of the people in the game to start to go crazy, and they start to try and kill themselves because they want to be part of the AI instead of being a part of the physical world. And it's an amazing story, very intriguing, and a lot more interesting than Machine for Pigs was. But the problem with the game is that I fear it's a bit too linear, whereas like Penumbra and Amnesia, Dark Descent were both linear games. But the pathway in which you go about solving the puzzles, in which you go about exploring and investigating the areas is very non-linear. This game is you go to the next area, solve the puzzle, which unlocks the door to the next area. There's a monster in the next area that you have to stealthily avoid, unlock the puzzle to go to the next area, and there's no micromanaging of your inventory. There's no sanity meter like there was in Dark Descent. There's no micromanaging, and because of that, I fear it loses a lot of the tension that Dark Descent has, because you're having to keep your sanity and your health high, you're having to maintain your inventory, and run away from the monsters. Yeah. I feel like Penumbra, or not Penumbra, I feel like Frictional as a company has kind of hit their peak with Dark Descent, and because they allowed people to make custom stories of it, there's not really anywhere for them to go at this point. Because you can download a late night drink, and you can download some of the highest rated custom stories on Game Jolt to be able to see what people can do with the Amnesia engine, and because of that, there's nothing that Frictional can do to top that. So every game since then is just focusing entirely on the story and less so on the actual gameplay.
Yes, and even as you just said about Dark Descent mods, I went on this mod DDB page, and there's The Call from Another Dimension 3 hours ago. Yeah. I got invited 3 hours ago. Drinking game, do not drink too much. Abducted by Billy, Detective's Hard Case, all relatively new.
Yeah.
So they've really written themselves into a corner by allowing other people to do their job for them.
And you can mod Machine for Pigs as well. You can create custom stories for that, and supposedly you can also create custom stories for SOMA. And I'm enjoying SOMA. I enjoyed it when I was playing it, but it's also it wasn't as hectic as Dark Descent was. It wasn't as challenging as Dark Descent was. I think ultimately that's the problem I have with SOMA, is that like a lot of video games for a long time were very linear, and you go through this path, and then eventually you're just going to hit an obstacle that the game then says, try and get past this obstacle, press A. You didn't quite do it correctly, but try again, press A. Now you did it correctly. And there's not a whole lot of, nothing really punishes you for dying. You die, but then you kind of go back to the last checkpoint. And even when monsters, attack you in SOMA, which is a lot different than Machine for Pigs, because you rarely got a monster to attack you in Machine for Pigs. You have to deal with them more frequently in SOMA. When they attack you, more often than not, you'll pass out, go back to the beginning of the area, and your health is down. But then you can go back through the area, and the monster's a little bit easier to get past this point because it's had a chance to walk around. You do still have to manage your health bar, so it's almost like they're slowly but surely putting gameplay elements back into it. There are more puzzles, more monsters, and you have to manage your health bar, and there are health stations where you can heal yourself, but it's still not quite to the level that Dark Descent was.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and especially when you consider a developer. I mean, I could also throw up another example of developers. Take Irrational Games, for example. If you take their stories, their games, and you have a look at System Shock 2, and you go to Bioshock 2, and then Infinite. Whereas I think everyone would agree that I believe Bioshock, the original, to be the best, and then you have the second one, which people are iffy on, and Infinite's pretty good. But it's like, if you compare System Shock 2 to Bioshock, those two games, in how they were, functionally, gameplay-wise, pretty similar. The story was completely different, which is similar with SOMA, where they've tried to do the same, but it's like there isn't enough story there, or there isn't enough individual character to make it as rewarding or as satisfying to play as the games that came before, which I believe is what some might argue with Bioshock Infinite compared to System Shock 2, for example.
Though, I probably should have done this before I did the podcast, but I haven't looked up who the director or who the main head developer for the past couple of games were, but it does sort of feel like they've taken a lot of ideas from the Chinese room and made it into SOMA. Because the original trailer for Soma was really creepy and really, like, wigged me out a bit. It had gameplay trailer where you were walking around in what appeared to be a moratorium. What's the morgue? You were walking around a morgue where people's brains were taken out, but then you would put these machines onto their heads, and it would make them like alive briefly. And you're walking through an area that looks like some sort of an alien hive, and there's a monster lurking around that you can't quite see. And then it turns out this alien hive is actually underwater. That was like a really intriguing trailer that I was like, ooh, this looks really good. It looks more like Amnesia, Dark Descent than Machine for Pigs. The final game that they came out with, though I would say better than Machine for Pigs by a significant portion, still feels like Machine for Pigs as opposed to Dark Descent. Because you don't manage your inventory, because there's less of a challenge, it doesn't feel like it pushes you the same way that Dark Descent did.
I mean, yeah, I can definitely see from at least the developer standpoint that they want to try and differentiate themselves. They want to take the best elements of their older games and try to change them and warp them and, you know, try and build something new. And sometimes they'll take too many risks, or they won't take enough risks. And I believe that they may have failed slightly in finding the right balance, of what they needed. Where they had a good idea. I think the idea of SOMA was fantastic, but they ran with concepts and game mechanics and core game design elements from Machine with Pigs, instead of going back to their roots with, say, the original Amnesia, maybe because it was a newer game, or because they maybe the more casual fans would have jumped on it more, whatever their reason.
It does, yeah. It does feel like, though, because Amnesia, in a way, did take away some gameplay elements that Penumbra had. I felt like Penumbra felt more like an old-school adventure game from a first-person perspective. There was so much inventory micromanagement, and the areas were so small at times, but there was, like, the section where you're being chased by the worm, the section where you're trying to get away from the dogs, the section with the alien with the alien walking around the laboratory. All of these were, you know, very tense because you're trying to do so much inventory micromanagement while also avoiding these monsters. Whereas Dark Descent decided, well, in our old game you could fight them. This one we're just going to take away your ability to fight. That made the game better because you had to focus entirely on your wits. There's a monster running down the hallway. I'm going to run the hell away instead of having to, like, swing your axe to fight it. The problem is SOMA and Machine for Pigs decided to take away even more gameplay elements, but that also took away from the gameplay. It's the idea of, do you want more story? Do you want more atmosphere? Do you want more gameplay? There is a lot of great atmosphere in SOMA. The first time you encounter a monster, you don't even know what it is. You're just like, what is this thing? And you go around the corner, you get one of those audio logs, which are essentially memories. Like, you press the thing and you get a memory of someone who used to be human. You go back around the corner and notice that something's missing. And you're just like, oh, that was the monster. I didn't even know. And now you're having to walk around this area looking left and right, and you're just like, what is this thing? The monster itself isn't really that scary, but going up against it is still really tense, because it can basically knock you out in one hit. Yeah. The problem is those sections are too few, and there are more moments, I feel like, that could have used the monster. There are more, I feel as though you could have had more difficult puzzles in there that were, like, hard to beat. But honestly, I've played the game. It's actually a lot of fun. Don't know if it's worth $30, which is what I paid for it on Steam, but it'd be worth people's time maybe for a Steam sale.
I mean, yeah, I can definitely see the game like in a sale, you know, selling a lot. I mean, they even gave away the original Amnesia when they launched the game on Steam.
I remember that. Yes, I unfortunately had already had Dark Descent. Otherwise, I would have been all over that.
Exactly. Which, I mean, that's great marketing right there. That's getting people hyped up. Even checking Soma for me on Steam right now, it's £23, which it's a bit too steep for me to justify the purchase.
I think even the original Amnesia, Dark Descent, was only $20 when it first came out. I'm not sure what's. I'm not sure what Soma. I don't know why it's $10 more than the original game. I don't know if it's worth $10 more. But honestly, just to experience the story and to get sucked into the atmosphere, because they are very good at atmospheric, creepy games. It is worth your time to play it, but ultimately, I feel like if they want to move forward as a developer, they need to go back to a more Amnesia-style game where there's things that you have to constantly manage, because it adds to the tension of, there's a creepy robot monster around the corner, and I have to mix these two elements together in order to, move to the next area, as opposed to, there's a creepy robot monster around the corner, I press this button, and now I can go on with the rest of the game.
Yes, I believe that too. That would be good. Because, I mean, I'm a games development student, so talking even from the principle of games design and games mechanics, even today we were doing interfaces and so on. So, from my perspective, they try to water down and streamline the mechanics even further to fit a more complicated story, when they should have made the mechanics more sophisticated to perfectly complement the story, and that's the biggest mistake.
It's sort of the Half-Life 1 style of game making, the idea of there is, like, it sort of takes the opposite of that. With Half-Life 1, there was just a game that you played. You can go through it if you want to and just fight a bunch of monsters and keep going, but then there's also a much deeper story in there if you wanted to sort of look at it and go, wait a second, there's something about conspiracy and, and this strange guy in a suit who is manipulation over time, whereas Soma basically makes you go through all the different story elements, but it doesn't quite work in the gameplay elements.
Yeah, and when the mechanics are separated from story, not to throw a term around, but that's ludonarrative dissonance, and that is a very bad thing to have for horror games, because you want the story and the game being able to sync up perfectly.
Yeah, and especially with certain times when playing Soma, it was just like, because there are multiple characters in Soma. At one point, I'm talking to one of the other AIs, and my character's like, there's an evil robot monster out there who's trying to kill us, and the other AI is like, yeah, you just really need to ignore that robot monster. What you need to do is you need to go over here and solve this other puzzle, but don't worry about the robot monster. And the thing is, he can still kill you. Like, you walk around and then the screen starts to go shaky, and then you're just like, oh no, he's coming. But the fact that even the characters are just like, yeah, don't worry about the robot monster, kind of takes away a lot of the tension when you're... Because in Dark Descent, it's just like, what the hell are these things? They're coming after me from every single angle, and in this game, they're just sort of like, yeah, there's these angry robot monsters, they've kind of gone haywire, it's because of this, MacGuffin kind of thing. Don't worry about them, we just need you to continue the plot. And it kind of takes away a lot of the tension when that happens.
That's the worst thing any horror in any medium can do, is take away the tension for the reasoning of just advancing the game, pushing the game forward, but yet ruining horror is not how you make a good horror game.
Well, I believe that is all the time we have for this episode. So, Adam, I want to say thank you for helping me out with this. This is a lot of fun.
Sure.
And to the people who are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, thank you for watching. If there are topics that you would like us to cover, or if you have questions or comments that you would like us to answer in the next episode, please feel free to leave them below, or tweet them at Gaming Wildlife. Go on to our YouTube channel, leave us a comment that way, and we'll address them in future episodes. My name is Ian. I am the director of Gaming Wildlife at youtube.com/gamingwildlife. This is Adam from Cold Steel Games, youtube.com/Cold Steel Games. Check out our channels.
We appreciate it.
And we will see you next time when we discuss the state of gaming.